Make peace, don't test nukes. Why did Trump criticize Putin? I'll tell you more in the upcoming segment. I'm Solomia Witkowska and this is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Here are a few of today's topics. Emergency power outages. What awaits Ukrainians this winter, and is it possible to plan electricity schedules in advance? Did it unite people or the opposite?
This is a disaster, honestly.
Why did a scandal erupt around the national radio dictation? Fashionable favorites? It suits her.
It suits her. That's how she is.
What are cats and dogs wearing these days? We need to be prepared for the fact that the situation with electricity in our homes can change very dynamically, even daily. But for each period, many scenarios have been developed. And that's exactly how the chairman of the board of NPC Ukrenergo commented on today's emergency power outages. Vitaly Zachenko noted that under constant energy terror, it is quite difficult to guarantee that there will always be electricity. The company prepared for winter according to several scenarios, from optimistic to crisis. However, due to the ongoing energy terror, forecasts have to be adjusted. Emergency crews are constantly repairing the damaged infrastructure, but in winter, the situation can change daily, just like today. According to the plan, residential consumers were not supposed to experience power outages, but increased consumption, caused in part by their carelessness, led to emergency shutdowns in the capital, Kyiv region, Sumy region, and Dnipropetrovsk region.
Today's schedules and power restrictions for industry were planned. Unfortunately, these schedules were not as effective as we had anticipated, and consumption went up due to rather cloudy weather across Ukraine. Therefore, to preserve our energy system, we were forced to at least implement emergency outage schedules, which will eventually transition to hourly outage schedules, so that our consumers know when they will have electricity.
The Russians are deliberately destroying civilian infrastructure and targeting peaceful residents. 2 people killed, 3 wounded in Donetsk region. Dozens of buildings destroyed in the Kramatorsk and Bakhmut districts. In Sumy region, an enemy drone attacked a truck carrying food, resulting in injuries. The driver was injured. And in Sumy, a drone struck a multi-story apartment building, causing a fire to break out. Part of the regional center was left without power after the night attack. 1 person was killed and 3 more were wounded in the Kharkiv region. Kupiansk district is under heavy fire. In the village of Tishchankivka, a 61-year-old man was wounded. In the village of Osinov, another local resident was injured. In Podoli, a woman was killed. And in Kupiansk, residential buildings, an agricultural enterprise, farm machinery, and a store were damaged. In Borova, an FPV drone attacked a civilian car, but the driver miraculously was not injured. Kherson and the surrounding villages are also under enemy fire. After the morning shelling of the Dnipro district of the city, a civilian was injured, and the day before, an elderly woman suffered blast injuries. 8 apartment buildings and nearly 20 private houses were damaged. The Russians carried out 16 airstrikes on Zaporizhzhia, leaving more than 1,700 subscribers without electricity. In the village of Rivnopilya, a Russian shell killed a pensioner, and another person was killed in Primorske. In the Zaporizhzhia district, the invaders struck with drones at least 5 times. There, houses, a sports facility, and farm buildings were damaged. People are bringing flowers to the residential apartment building to honor the dead in the Desnianskyi district of the capital. The previous night, around 3 in the morning, a Russian Shahed drone struck there. The drone strike caused a fire, and the flames engulfed the building from the 1st to the 7th floor. As a result, people in the upper apartments were trapped. Unfortunately, 3 residents died as a result of the attack. TSN correspondent Alina Lisova saw how people are recovering after what they've been through.
Burned furniture and completely charred walls. Just 2 days ago, people were still living here. However, after the Russian drone strike, these apartments are now uninhabitable. Water drips down the walls, the same water firefighters used to put out the blaze. And instead of a concrete floor between several middle stories, there's just a gaping hole. Still, residents were allowed into the building so they could retrieve at least something that survived. As
you can see nothing, the insides
are gone. Even on the 2nd day after the attack, after firefighters had put out the flames, it's still hard to be inside the building because the air is thick with the strong smell of burning. Residents of the apartment building say it was this very smoke that killed people. According to official information, there were 3 victims, among them a woman and her 19-year-old daughter. During the attack, they were hiding in the bathroom. There was also a 3rd victim who could not be identified for a long time. However, today the police reported the following. It was a woman. Born in 1974, it is known that she lived on the 7th floor with her 15-year-old son, and after the Shahed struck, they tried to run out but ended up trapped in a fiery inferno on the lower floors. The woman died, but her son survived.
My wife's sister's name was Oksana. They tried to escape using the stairs. They were going down the stairs from the 7th floor, and the epicenter was on the 2nd and 3rd floor. But it was impossible because of the intense flames and the carbon monoxide gas. They couldn't get past those 2 floors, the 4th and 3rd. They just couldn't make it. Her son was pulled out by rescuers, resuscitated, and sent to the intensive care unit at Okhmady. The mother died.
Many residents of the 9-story building suffered serious injuries. These included shrapnel cuts, burns from the fire, and they were also left without a roof over their heads.
It just exploded. I got up and it was already, there was hissing, so I went to look and it was already full of smoke burning. I went out in just a robe. My hands were burned. I saw that there were wounds. The skin had burst and it was burning.
Some of the apartments on the lower floors are flooded with water. All the windows were blown out, water everywhere, bedding and pillows are soaked, there's no gas or electricity. We are terrified, but there are some apartments that are completely intact where, after inspection by the relevant services, people continue to live. As for me,
everything is fine, everything is intact. My neighbors suffered a lot of damage, but thank God nothing happened to me. I was sleeping with the window open, but now there's nothing left. Now I'm washing the windows, the mosquito screens, airing out my things, more or less.
Right now, utility workers are on site where the attack happened. They are cleaning up glass and other dangerous debris, covering the windows with plastic film to protect the building from moisture, and trying to restore all utilities.
Ukrainian defenders repelled 124 enemy assaults over the past day, with Pokrovsk coming under especially heavy fire. The enemy targeted with missiles from both land and air. In particular, just from the air, they dropped more than 200 aerial bombs along the entire front line in a single day. The enemy army launched 6,000 drones and shelled Ukrainian positions more than 4,000 times. And the most relentless, according to the General Staff reports, is their shelling on the Pokrovsk sector. There, up to 40 battles take place in a single day. And all of them, our defenders repel up to 20 assaults daily, also in the Kostiantynivka, Oleksandrivka, and northern Slobozhansky directions. The occupiers are trying to push forward in the north of Donetsk region, in the areas of Huliaipol, Kramatorsk, and Kupiansk, practically everywhere. However, the defense forces are not only holding back the offensive, but are also pushing the enemy back with tactical strikes in their rear. In the past few hours, they have struck 8 areas where Russian troops, their weapons, equipment, and artillery systems are stationed. Ukraine, together with its allies, will be developing a ceasefire plan over the next 7 to 10 days. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced this in an interview with Axios. After the meeting between the Ukrainian and American leaders, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer proposed putting forward a peace initiative modeled after Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip. Last week, Zelensky discussed this with other European leaders. Although the situations in Ukraine and Gaza are different, the politician expressed his willingness to work on it. He also noted that the plan should be brief, without too many details. At the same time, the president of Ukraine expressed serious doubts that Kremlin leader Putin would accept any proposals from the coalition of the willing. Nearly 350,000 in a year, that's how many Russia has lost, killed, and wounded. And this number, according to Volodymyr Zelensky, equals the number of those mobilized during the same period. That is 346,000 soldiers. In addition, he said that Putin boasted to his allies about how Russia would occupy the entire Donbas by October 15th. They were unable to do this because the aggressor lacks manpower. And over the past 2 to 3 months, the situation on the battlefield has mostly remained unchanged. Overall, since the start of the full-scale invasion in February 2022, according to the calculations of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Russians have lost over 1 million, 137,000 soldiers killed and wounded. Russian Special Envoy Kirill Dmitriev, who flew to the United States to establish connections after sanctions were imposed on Russian oil companies, caused conflicts with US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. In response to the Russians' remarks that the sanctions would not affect Russia and would have a negative impact on prices in America itself, Bessent called him a propagandist and rhetorically asked what would happen to Dmitriev in Russia if he suddenly told the truth about the dire state of their economy. Watch the full story in the following report.
Putin's special envoy Kirill Dmitriev spent several days in the United States. He met with 2 American officials, including the US President's special envoy Steve Witkoff. However, judging by Dmitriev's social media, where he describes in detail almost every step he takes in America, Witkoff did not even agree to meet, not even for a joint photo. But when it came to Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, known for her anti-Ukrainian stance, Dmitriev showed up with flowers and a box of chocolates designed to look like a collection of Putin's quotes. The Kremlin envoy also gave numerous interviews to local TV and YouTube channels. The main thing American hosts are interested in right now is the reaction to the sweeping sanctions against Russian oil. Last week, the US Treasury Department imposed full blocking restrictions on the companies Rosneft and Lukoil. Dmitriev threatened the American authorities, saying that these measures would only hurt Americans themselves.
Sanctions, unfriendly measures, they will have absolutely no impact whatsoever on the Russian economy. They will simply lead to higher gas prices at the pump in the US.
And that was a mistake on the part of the Russian who was supposedly supposed to be building bridges in the US, bridges of friendship. Because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, commenting on his words on CBS, called Dmitriev a propagandist. And in general, he was outraged that he even had to respond to him.
Are you really repeating what a Russian propagandist is saying? I mean, what else could he possibly say? That everything will be terrible and that this will force Putin to come to the negotiating table. Of course, the Russian economy is a wartime economy. Growth is practically zero. Inflation, I believe, exceeds 20%. And everything we are doing will force Putin to come to the negotiating table. It is oil that finances the Russian war machine. And I think we can significantly reduce his profits.
According to Bessent, Russian oil revenues have already dropped by 20% this year, and as a result of sanctions, they are expected to fall by at least as much or even more, forecasts the US Secretary of the Treasury. The ambassador of Ukraine to the US, Olha Stefanishina, reminded that the United States actually suspended sanctions against Dmitriev so that he could come for negotiations. Regarding the reasons for Kirill Dmitriev's stay in the US, personal sanctions against this individual can be reinstated and strengthened. His actions and public statements are aimed at buying time, diverting attention from ending the war, and attracting more funding for Russian aggression and its sponsors. According to US Treasury Secretary Bessent, India has now completely stopped purchasing Russian oil, and many Chinese refineries have shut down. And this is even before the sanctions have come into effect. United States President Donald Trump is currently on an Asian tour and will meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping this Thursday. I promised to talk to him in particular about his trade with Russia. Olga Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN1+.
Meanwhile, the US president responded to Russia's tests of a missile with a nuclear power unit. Putin boasted about the capabilities and range of his new weapon over the weekend. To this, Donald Trump reminded everyone, America has its own nuclear submarines not far from Russia. And he explained what, in his opinion, Putin should have done instead of testing the missile.
They know that we have a nuclear submarine, the best in the world, right off their shores. So we don't need a missile to fly 8,000 miles. They're not playing games with us, and we're not playing games with them either. We constantly conduct missile tests. But as I already said, we have a nuclear submarine. We don't need to shoot at such a distance. And by the way, I don't think it's appropriate for Putin to make such statements. He should have ended the war that was supposed to last 1 week. And now it's already approaching its 4th year. And that's what he should be focusing on, not missile tests. How
will he take Trump's advice? Putin himself, share your predictions with us in the comments to this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. In the meantime, I continue with the TSN broadcast. In an American school, artificial intelligence mistook a bag of chips for a firearm. Because of this, the police detained the teenager. The incident happened in Baltimore. A 16-year-old teenager. So Alan, after football practice, sat down to eat some chips and put the empty bags in his pocket. The AI-based threat detection system operating at the school identified it as a gun. An alarm was triggered, and 20 minutes later, patrol cars arrived at the scene. With weapons drawn, the police rushed at the high school student, ordered him to lie on the ground, and put him in handcuffs. Only later did they find out that the call was a false alarm. The school principal sent a letter to the boy's parents explaining what had happened. However, she emphasized that student safety is the top priority. The teenager himself admitted that now he is afraid to go outside after football practice.